Coming up in news tonight, the former Deputy Prime Minister calls on the Prime Minister to shut down talks on that controversial fisheries proposal. One scholar expresses confidence the new University of the Bahamas can compare to other schools around the world. The FNM's deputy leader voices concern over hurricane relief efforts in Grand Bahama. Plus, we've got an update on next year's FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup. Welcome to Our News. I'm Dana Smith. Thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight, the controversy over that multi-billion-dollar agri-fisheries proposal continues. And former Deputy Prime Minister Brent Symonette is the latest to weigh in on the matter. He says rather than assure the Bahamian people that he'll protect their interests, Prime Minister Perry Christie needs to state emphatically that the proposed investment, which will allow jointly owned Chinese and Bahamian companies access to the country's marine resources, will not happen. Symonette charged that many Bahamians are quickly losing faith in this administration. Symonette suggested the concern about the proposals isn't necessarily linked to xenophobia, as the Bahamas and China have a long history of partnerships. Rather, he said the recent outrage and reluctance is due to what he said is a tendency by this Christie administration to give away far too many concessions.
In order to achieve direct foreign investment, they are reckless with the agreements they make on behalf of the Bahamian people. So let's not talk to us about protecting Bahamians, because under the Christie administration, they have not done that.
Details of the proposals in question, a $2.1 billion agri-fisheries project, as well as a forestry project in North Andros, were first brought to light in the Nassau Guardian. Both projects call for the lease of thousands of acres of Crown land and have sparked widespread concern among members of the opposition as well as the general public. Symonette said the projects seemingly came out of nowhere.
You have a number of deals that are put on the table or are purported to be put on the table, which seem to be hatched in the middle of the night. And I think that's what people are worried about.
The FNM has accused the Christie administration of formulating secret deals and have continued to question what concessions are being discussed. Symonette said it's against this background that government is receiving tremendous backlash and resistance.
The public is now tired of a government who was elected on the basis of Bahamians first and saying how bad the FNM was and what the FNM did, and are now proving to be far worse. And we don't know what the truth is. And I'm sorry, Joe Public that I talked to in the last week, when the Prime Minister goes on the radio, TV, and says, I'm going to protect your interest, they do not believe him.
Agriculture Minister V. Alfred Gray had suggested on Wednesday the fisheries initiative is still on the table. Symonette said that's not something he can support. The Prime Minister needs to assure it will not happen.
Don't talk about policing it. We can't even police the southern Bahamas with the Dominican fishermen. You go and ask a Spanish welsman that, or a fisherman that. So how on earth are we going to protect 100,000 square miles of water from a Chinese mothership? I'm not picking on the Chinese. It could be any national mothership way out in our waters that sends its fish straight off out of the country. How are we going to protect it, regulate it, tax it? It's the wild, wild west out there.
The former Deputy Prime Minister's comments come as opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis also calls on Prime Minister Perry Christie to address the matter. He said in a statement yesterday, another week has passed and the people still don't have an answer from their Prime Minister. Does the embattled Prime Minister support Minister Gray's ill-advised, ill-conceived secret proposal to give away 20,000 acres of Crown land and our fishing rights to the Chinese? Minnis continued, the Prime Minister's continuing silence only serves to even further erode his fading credibility. But doing the people's business in secret is a hallmark of the Christie-led government, as he has refused to address repeated questions about the details of his own secret proposal with his Chinese allies in the Bahamar deal. The opposition leader added, so which is it, Mr. Prime Minister? Are you clueless about the scandalous activities of your minister, or are you complicit in the ill-advised proposed giveaway to the Chinese? Minnis repeated his call for Gray to be removed from office, asserting the Bahamian people deserve leadership that will put their interests first. While a body was found at the New Providence landfill this afternoon shortly after 1 p.m., Chief Superintendent Clayton Fernander, officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, told reporters at the scene no foul play is suspected at this time. The body, belonging to a man believed to be in his early 50s, was discovered by a heavy equipment operator at the city dump. Fernander said the body had been at the dump for about a day or so. He noted there is some trauma to the body, but did not provide specifics. Police at this time do not believe this latest incident is a homicide. Fernander said investigations continue and they are awaiting autopsy results to determine the exact cause of death. In other news tonight, now that the University of the Bahamas is a reality, just how well can it stand up to universities around the world? It's a question we put to Dr. Nicolette Bethel, a professor at the institution and the daughter of one of its pioneers. Kyle Joaquin reports.
She's a cultural anthropologist and has served in various capacities in government as well as the College of the Bahamas. Dr. Nicolette Bethel for years has played a vital role in tertiary education in the Bahamas. She and I had a very candid conversation during the Charter Day ceremony for the University of the Bahamas. A talk about where the university is going and what it has to do. She said for those who question what really changed when COB became a university, there's just misconception about what a university actually is.
I've said for the last at least 6 years that we're already functioning at university standard. There's several things that you want to be doing with the university or that a university does. One of them is teach. One of them is research, and one of them is come up with new ideas to look at things, and we've been doing all three.
And when it comes to the lack of confidence some students may have in the university to stand on the world stage, here's what Bethel believes the reason is.
What has been missing up to this point is real student experience at the university level. And so that's maybe why students lack the confidence, because they're missing all the other things. We don't have dorms like that. And that's one of the ways in which you get that full immersion in the university culture is by living in the university culture. So I think that that's already on stream. Once we have our residences, I think student confidence is going to go up.
But on the flip side, she said the feeling of some students is a reflection of how many in the community may view the institution.
We tend to work on the default that, if it comes out of the Bahamas, it really ain't all that good. And we miss the reality, which is that really this institution is pretty doggone good. And particularly for what you pay for the education you can't get better value for money.
Bethel said although many of its citizens may not recognize it, the Bahamas is a really important nation. She referenced the potential for a vast amount of research on various topics from global warming to studies on the Atlantic. And research, she said, is one key focus for the University of the Bahamas.
If we are doing the research, if we're engaging in the kinds of things that we could and should be doing, we could be studying, exactly what impact Andros has on carbon sinks and so on. What impact does Bahamian fisheries have on the development of fish in the whole of the Atlantic? What impact does this place, which serves as the junction of European expansion into this part of the world, what impact does that have on the globe in general?
In all, she said the transition to university is a major success and one that the entire nation should celebrate. But while there is still work to be done, she noted that the institution is world-class and only has room for growth.
There are certain things that we may not be doing so well with being the wealthiest nation right now, but there are certain things that we need to look at to see what are our successes. We focus all the time on our failures and our shortcomings without really looking at what the successes are of this country.
Reporting for our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, Dr. William Harvey, the president at Hampton University, says the University of the Bahamas will be able to stand up to just about any university in the world. While speaking at the Charter Day ceremony on Thursday, Harvey said the day recognizes an important day in the history of the institution and the life of every Bahamian. For the most part, he said he is extremely proud of UB President Dr. Rodney Smith, who he described as a man of excellence and determination.
There is no doubt in my mind that Dr. Smith will provide the kind of exemplary leadership that will promote and expand the University of the Bahamas to soaring new heights in teaching, research, technology, and public service.
Dr. Smith served in various capacities at Hampton University in Virginia under the leadership of Dr. Harvey. Harvey said every time he promoted Smith, he just kept getting better. So he has had no doubt in his ability to lead the University of the Bahamas through this major transition.
He is a team builder. He possesses a truly uncanny ability to match cause with capability, people with problems, and groups with goals. This ability, coupled with the myriad of strengths and talents he possesses, will allow him to lead the whole of the University of the Bahamas to never before realized heights.
Well, amid all of the University of the Bahamas celebrations were mounting concerns about whether the school was ready for the transition when they still experience issues with student registration and classroom efficiency. Alfred Sears, who serves as the College Council chairman, says they have been taking all of these issues into consideration.
The president, right before I left, had proposed, and the board had agreed, to bring on a new system called the banner system. And this new system will bring more efficiency to the process of registration. But not only registration, it will help students to be able to plan out the 4 years of their program.
Sears said as the transition got underway, more than sufficient staff were hired to assist with other complaints known to staff.
We got was there a lot of hidden prerequisites. That is, when you get in, when you admit it, it's only when you start signing up for the courses you realize you need to do this before you could do your major, and then when you sign up for these prerequisites, if there's not sufficient subscription, the course is canceled, and then you may have to wait another year. So rather than finishing in 4 years, many persons end up having to extend that. So these matters are being addressed.
When Our News returns, the FNM's deputy leader voices concern about government's hurricane relief efforts in Grand Bahama. So stay with us.